is going to be more informal, as you could tell. I decided that when we're talking about engagement, I get a lot of questions about how to engage. The young people will come up and they'll be like, you're doing this, how do I start, what do I do? And I was in that exact same position. I was sitting where you're all sitting when I was doing my bachelor's, and I was just as confused. And I would be like looking at someone up there, I'm like, how the hell did you get up in that position, what do you do? And so I'm going to basically detail, as fast as I can, because we're on a time limit, how I got to where I got to now and where I'm going, and if it's helpful to you at all, that'll be even more amazing. So, as you can see, one of my main SDGs is SDG 10. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, to give you a quick run about me, as she said, I'm an international lawyer. My specialty is international human rights law and criminal law and digital rights. And I studied international development initially, so this was always of interest to me. And now I currently study global development in my master's. I grew up in Ukraine, Israel, and Canada, between the three. And when I grew up in those three countries, I witnessed a lot of inequalities and a lot of very differing perspectives, especially when you compare different countries' way to warfare, to human rights, to social equity, to progress. And when I got here, one of the most fundamental things that really surprised me was the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. I had never experienced anything like that. So it made me initially want to immediately get into it, into that work. So I wanted to work at the UN. That's where everybody thinks that they want to work at. So the first such touch I had was in 2015. This was a year and a half post-Arab Spring. We had something in Ontario pop up called Together Project. Together Project tried to put settlement projects together for any asylum or refugee seekers that were coming into Canada to help them assimilate into the country, gain understanding, integrate, everything like that. So I was very involved with that. And then throughout that time, I was studying. And as I was studying development, I was like, okay, I guess everybody's starting up some company. I might as well start one up as well. So I did. It went nowhere for the first year. And after I graduated, I had started working in SDG work at a company called MyTax. They fund social research innovation scholarships. A lot of them have to do with the SDGs. If any of you are ever interested, you can go on their portals. They have a lot that you could apply to. But I started working in that field, and it motivated me to reinvigorate my work with Afflican. Afflican is an anagram that stands for I Can Affect Lives. My initial point was when I was working at MyTax, I noticed that we had resource deficits for young people, and especially in local communities. And you would put out development tenders out, and there would be no one to fill them because they don't have money, they don't have the capacity. And I was like, why aren't young people being engaged there? If you have a local community partner and young people are living there, they have the expertise that you need. How about you leverage them and give them the expertise to do so? So I started pairing them up through my own work contacts, and that's what I did for a few years. We did a few projects in Uganda, a few in India, and then I continued that SDG work through COVID. And then this was around the time that the UN Youth Envoy began. This is when all the big youth stuff started happening in 2018, and then it turned to the UN Youth Office in 2022. And I thought, okay, great, let's pick up on the momentum. And it started coming to Canada. One such momentum was Good Neighbours Canada. They're a humanitarian organization, a multinational one, and they put out a youth advisory committee. So I'm like, I'll apply, I'll start doing something, I might as well. Fortunately for me, I became part of it, and I started leading the advocacy initiatives. We ran 2 educational programs in Bangladesh and Myanmar for girls' education, and I was the one in charge of gathering all the grants, doing all their advocacy promotion. So I did that. That same year, they were drafting the Pact for the Future, which is now, it was signed at the Summit of the Future, and now this is how the UN is operating for the Being Future. And I was part of that, and Global Governance Forum is a civil society organization, and they include young people, they include anybody that wants to partake in global governance work, as is the Coalition for the UN We Need, that's C4UN. And they were doing a collaborative effort to submit a proposal. So I thought, okay, let me partake in this, so I supported it in their drafting, and that started getting me into that UN work. So this was early 2023. Next slide. So I'm a visual person, so you're gonna see a bunch of pictures. So what happened was, then when I joined Harvard, Harvard is part of an association. That was that really long name. It's the UN SDSN, and we're part of the Global MDP. The Global MDP is made up of 35 different development practitioner programs. They train development practitioners in the world, and it's under the UN SDSN. And it's a formal body established by Ban Ki-moon. And I saw that there was a huge gap. After COVID, everything died. So I was like, okay, well, this is a deficit. I might as well do something about it. I might as well leverage it. So I just started coming up with any ideas that I could. And I had some resources, because obviously it's part of this organization. So that's what I started precisely. I nominated different delegates to go to the Summit of the Future. through my company, I have status with the UN, so I put them there, brought them to summits. We ran different organizational initiatives in Nigeria, so you can see them there. We had different master classes that were exclusive to our association with high-level expert speakers. I myself got to go to the Vatican with a bunch of change makers, and then we also did some work in India. And I had done this in the span of 8 months. So when I started doing all of this, I realized that as soon as you start taking action, you're able to start getting into these spaces. And it's to the point that Leo was saying as well, you don't need anybody's permission to do anything. If you have some interest, if you have a gap, you can easily just start doing anything at a local or an international, even regional level, and then you just scale that further and further, and you slowly and surely start getting into this work. It doesn't have to be global or massive or have a bunch of millions of grants behind it. It just matters that you care and you want to do it. Next slide. Am I on time? Good? Okay, one of the other big inaugural things that I came up with during my time there was a global challenge. I realized that this association is really unique in that it's made up of 24 different countries. So I felt, why aren't we leveraging that to do something for development if we're a bunch of development practitioners? This is bizarre. So I came up with this challenge. I contacted my contacts in the World Bank and Global Environment Facility, and we had brought their senior evaluator teams in. So these are the ones that evaluate all the grants that comes in. And they did it on an in-kind basis. They started analyzing these grants. So we would put transnational teams together, and they would submit different projects together. And the whole point was to let these young people be their own change that they wish to see. They don't need to go get a big job somewhere. You have a big project, you have a team of people, put it together, put it in front of people, and then go get your granting and get it done. So that's precisely what we did. We had 8 teams in total with 24 different countries. This was ultimately our winning team. They focused on poverty alleviation and Sabah, Malaysia. So this was quite successful. It went global, and now we're doing it for 2 more years because we got extended funding from a foundation in Germany. So now they'll be implementing it in the field for the next 3 years thereafter. Next slide. So my work there got me nominated to the UN. That's how I got a more direct entry. This was a, I'll keep talking. This was a nomination to the UN Human Rights Office. They had a second edition of their Youth Advisory Board, but this was more focused on more of the tangible policy work. So they needed people that were involved in that kind of work. I had written education policy a year prior in Ontario, but obviously they wanted young people to get involved in that work. I always say that when it comes to this type of work, you start at a really local level, and sometimes you need a big break. You need someone to give you the big access into something so that you can keep scaling it. It's unfortunately the reality of the system and what we live in. And you had that with Leo. He scaled his own organization, but sometimes you just need someone to believe in you and to give you that access, but you also have to show that you've made impact and that you're capable of it. Frankly, for me, they gave me this access. This has brought me to a bunch of global conferences. I've been able to do a lot of policy work, and we actually developed something called the Youth Empowerment System for the Human Rights Office. This is for all young people and global. It's a toolkit in design in consultation with 60,000 young people globally to give them the tools and access for human rights mechanisms if they can't access them at home or if they don't know how to. And similarly, in this work, it got me appointed to the UN Youth Office. After the pact was signed, now there are 7 different working groups under the Secretary General's office. They are the ones that are supposed to do all the work, create a hard product, and then go and implement it. So, you know, like states sign something, but they don't know what to do with it. So they put me on the pact working group on youth, and now I've been directly designing all of the youth policies that member states will design. We actually just wrapped up last week. So that's been very fortunate that I've been getting this opportunity. And this is kind of how this type of thing works. You go from one thing to the next, and then it spitballs. Next. I'm almost done. And my point here is be loud and don't stop. That's kind of the overarching thing. Because of that, it has brought many beautiful things. We ran an academy. We trained 40 different young people from every part of the world in fundamental human rights. I'll be leading different SDG webinars this coming SDG month in Canada next year. I launched a peace campaign with the UN. I did a bunch of speaking, all of this stuff. And the point is that it came from that very beginning, from 2015 to now. But as you could see, it took a long time. But also when you get the momentum, it doesn't stop. But similarly so, you can't stop. You have to keep going. It's not just going to come to you. You have to be the change that you wish to see, as cliche as that sounds. Next slide. So, you might be thinking, okay, well, what the hell am I supposed to do now? There are 2 formal youth engagement mechanisms in the UN. That is the Major Group for Children and Youth. You have the link there. And the second one is the UN Youth Office. Those are the 2 formal ones. If you need all information, go there immediately. They engage, MGCY especially engages a lot of young people at every conference. They give you access, they give you ability to submit policy proposals, work with everybody that you want. This is a great opportunity for you. Second thing I want to say, besides be loud, be proud, don't quit, is be proactive. This was something that happened in the past 4 months for me. I had an idea that I wanted to work in cybercrime, that's my field by law. And so because I had a connection at the Human Rights Office, I just started cold emailing everybody in there just to be able to get some access into something. 95% of them ignored me. There was one unit that agreed, and then eventually took a few months of talks, a bunch of background checks, and then I got to co-author a paper and do their cybercrime analysis that's coming out next month. So that came from just me bugging them until they said yes. Similarly so, COP30 is coming up. You'll often see that there's event submissions that you could do. You can host something, you can partner with an organization. That's a great place for thought leadership, to put yourself out there and to also coalesce different community groups together. They had an opening for the SDSN, I submitted it. Ours was one of the 330 chosen out of 1,400. So you never know, you know what I mean? You have to be proactive. And a quick cheat sheet for you, if you don't know what to do. 1, identify your interests, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be all these SDGs. Whatever fascinates you, wherever you get joy, do that. Whatever moral indignation you have towards something, do that. Take action, local or international, in any way that you can. Research your youth engagement mechanisms. These are youth caucuses and boards or conferences. If you scan this QR code, it'll just go to a few of them that I've listed. There's a bunch that you can find. Form a presence online, either thought leadership or in person, or anything that matters to you. Doesn't always have to be very expansive, but just form a presence that you are in the space, that it matters to you, that you want to be in the space. Consider joining a CSO, a civil society organization. There's tons in Canada. You're able to leverage them because they already have the networks. So first start by maybe joining with them. Be proactive. These are examples, but there's also a platform called UN Volunteers. They are a platform where you're able to do online projects, sometimes for free, sometimes paid on mission. It's not a direct UN staffing job, but you're able to work with the UN. And usually for the remote ones, they're quite simple and straightforward if you get selected. So definitely leverage that. And finally, most importantly, engage and invest in yourself. Next slide. And that's me. If you have any questions, my LinkedIn, my email. Thank you. Do I take questions now or after?